Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niheh b'doro. Welcome and good morning. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero, Ways of Israel. And I'm going to continue speaking about parental alienation, part 3, because my conversations with Michael Habib and many other fathers who have suffered and gone through this horrendous process during the process of divorce, in which, as we mentioned yesterday, it is affecting many fathers in particular, being that the main perpetrator in this whole fight is the mother of the children, and that would be the ex of the divorced couple. But I do want to say this before that one of the normal things that usually happens, and I could say this on my case in particular, is that usually when you get social workers, licensed clinical social workers involved, they are usually utilized to go before the courts in order to advocate on behalf normally of the mother more than the father. And this has been the case, and studies have proven that utilizing a licensed clinical social worker has given that much more strength to the case of the mother in order to say, yes, there was this problem of abuse and damage. And most of the workers, social workers, are paid on behalf of them or behalf by some type of grant given to them to be able to report to the court a negative relationship, and it's to their benefit. This was also my case. I tried to work with my ex to bring a neutral social worker into involvement, but obviously she decided not to go that route and hire and get her own social worker recommended by the community that she belonged to. And of course, the whole thing was terrible, awful. I even said to myself, hearing the social worker saying, you know what? She is very believable. Heck, what she's saying, I might as well put myself into jail, because it's like saying, this is horrendous. If what she's saying is true, I deserve to go to jail. I mean, and yet I'm hearing this. I said, this didn't happen, and I felt so awful. Until this day, I realized there's something definitely wrong, because when you hear other fathers say the same thing happens and it's like a repetition, you know there's something wrong with the whole entire process in this country. Well, here are what most lawyers, custody lawyers, like Janet McCuller, advises parents who are in this type of custody and that have worked regarding parental alienation tactics. And you should know about this, Michael, in particular. What is parental alienation? Let me repeat that for those who are watching for the first time. Parental alienation is when one parent attempts to brainwash or denigrate the other parent, otherwise turn their child against the other parent. The allegation of parental alienation in the divorce case is a serious matter, but in most courts are not even looked at, but our participators, even the judges, participate knowing this is happening, do absolutely nothing about it. Parental alienation goes way beyond interfering with visitation rights and involve manipulating the child to change their attitude about the other parent. In other words, begin to feed the child a whole storyline that is completely, could be made up or just exaggerated, proving that the allegation in court can be very difficult, as many judges have yet to acknowledge parental alienation as a real problem. Even our local courthouses here, they don't recognize it. They don't recognize it's a problem. They see the best interest of the children, and instead of helping the parents resolve the issues, instead it becomes a fight. Here's a good checklist that for my friends and anyone going through this, any father going through this. Like I said, my heart goes for you, because I went through that, and it's the most horrendous thing for any father to go through, especially if you care about your children. And here's a basic checklist regarding parental alienation you should know about. In case of Fielding versus Fielding, the mother alleged the father was turning the two of the three children against her in the court. So this does happen also on the reverse side. And yet, the mother called an expert witness who presented 17 alienating strategies that alienating parents use. And this, of course, was used against me, and I'm sure for my friend Michael, it was used against him. A parental alienation checklist is almost the most standard in the industry. First of all, let's start talking about the other parent. Oh, how terrible the other parent is. He's all about himself. He's selfish. He starts denigrating the other parent. Number two, limiting how much contact the alienated parent has with the child. No, you can't see him today. He has a baseball practice. No, you can't see him today because he's in karate. No, because he's studying Torah. That's one of the favorites. He's studying Torah, and at this time you can't see him. He's going out on a vacation with the children or with the friends and family from the community, from the synagogue. No, he has an activity here, or she has an activity doing this. So those type of impositions, once, even in the court, they establish the ground rules. The parent that begins to violate that type of communication and limits how much contact you can have with the child becomes a problem. And like I said, once the issue of child abuse or domestic abuse comes in there, it changes all of this. Even if you've been given the right to see your child, all of a sudden it stops because now there's a problem, and therefore they will stop you from visiting and seeing the children, and even put a lawful detainer so you cannot, a restraining order, so you can't even come physically nearby them, and if you do, you can get arrested. This is how awful this whole process of parental alienation is. Like I said, I went through that, and Michael, if you're watching, I feel for you, and feel for every single father who has to go through this, because it's hell, literal hell. And limiting how many photographs or the alienated parents are allowed, or limiting how much alienated parents is brought up in conversation, is also an aspect. That's why you'll see pictures of fathers with their children, and even videotapes. I mean, heck, when we were together, we're very happy. You'll never see them sad. I enjoyed taking time with my kids to be able to have moment times, special times. And yet, when it was brought up to the courts, it's like it was a complete different scenario. The pictures were presented that, they were awful, that they didn't want to see you, because this was being driven home by that parent that was alienating the children against the other parent. Withdrawing love or expressing anger towards the child is another element which is common. In other words, the other parent will get upset if you show favoritism to the parent that's being alienated. So that's typical as a sign. The other thing is telling the child the other parent doesn't love you. Utilizing the psychologist, which many psychologists begins to paint a picture very negative of the parent they wish to alienate. In this case, this happened also to me. I had to file a report against a therapist that without my authorization, my ex went to get to have the child reviewed and treated, and the things that the child came back to me about, telling me what they were putting in their heads. I said, this cannot happen. So I filed a report in the state of Florida, but they did absolutely nothing. They gave the therapist a little slap in the hand. So this is what you're facing, Michael, and it's very hard, because once you get a therapist involved and the therapist is on the side of the other parent, by and large, most fathers are screwed, and I say that very, very clearly. You're not going to get anything from out of that. Giving the child the impression that the other parent is somehow dangerous is also another thing. He's violent, and all of this stuff begins to be part of the whole entire conversation. Telling the child about the personal adult and litigation information, telling him how you're going to hurt me, how he's trying to hurt me. These type of things are also tactics used in the parental alienation. Forcing the child to somehow reject the alienated parent. In other words, you don't talk to him. All you talk to him is all negative. And it's like this. That the child eventually, it's happened also to me. The child eventually says, "I don't want to talk to you, Dad. I don't want to talk to you. Every time I talk to you, Mom gets on my case." And they create an environment apart from the father that every time they speak with their father, they're afraid to speak with their father. They are completely manipulated by the extended parental support, the grandparents, the community. So it makes the father appear like he's an evil man. Why doesn't the children want to talk to him? Why doesn't the children want to speak to him? Call him up, say, "Hi, Dad." Something that would be normal. No. They create that environment of hate and fear in the child. So the child automatically says, I don't want to really talk with my father because every time I do, I get the backlash from my mother and the community and everybody around them. So forcing the child to somehow reject the alienated parent, Michael, is one of the tactics that's utilized by the parent that's alienating the other parent. Requesting the child to spy on the alienated parent. Oh, that was so true in my case. Looking for ways to get information. What I'm doing, who am I talking to? Get into my business so that later, when they get to the other custodial parent, get information to use it against them. And thank God I had recorded some videos because my kid said, "Dad recorded this," because I want to know I'm feeling pulled apart. Do you think for one moment I try to show this to the courts? Do you think they accepted that piece of evidence? Absolutely not. And this is why I got so frustrated with the court systems. It was in a way very similar to, you have the evidence, but it can't be presented because it's got to go through a process. It's more important the procedures than the facts. And Michael, that's one of the things that you'll realize, that many court systems here in the United States as well as in Israel are filled with procedural processes that detains and stops facts from coming to be presented. And this also happened to me. It's terrible. Like I said, this issue of parental alienation is something very little talked about. Yes, you talk about the abuse, which like I mentioned in the other videos, is terrible. There should be no child abuse, and that should be taken seriously. But many times it's utilized as a tactic to be able to attack and destroy the other parent. Asking the child to call the alienated parent by first name and not mom and dad is another thing. That was very, very typical of what I had to go through. They would, the other parent would say, "Oh, just call him Mario or Mariano." First of all, my name's not Mariano, or Moshe, which even in Jewish law you're not supposed to do that. But regardless, they did it anyhow because of the hurt, of the pain to whip back, as it were. So I went through that as well. And Michael, definitely don't let your kids call you by Michael or your first name. Make sure that they allow that it's okay to call you dad. One of the biggest problems, that's the way even in the process of when this alienation took place, I said, just call me dad. Pop. That's fine with me. Asking the child to call their new step-parent mom or dad, or referring to their new spouse as mom and dad to the child in order to create a separation, which is completely wrong. They should, recognize, you could call your step-parent by the first name to make this so the child has a distinction. But no, that didn't happen either. As a matter of fact, the grandparents mainly, and this is a big problem within the Cuban community. Michael, I know you're Cuban, but a big problem within the Cuban community is that they bring the in-laws, the parents, into the position of a step-parent, of a stepfather, and try to address them as dad, or give them the figure that they are now the caretakers of the child, and then separate even that much further the child. As a matter of fact, my ex had a previous ex who, in my conversation with him, mentioned that all of these 17 steps were happening. I mean, and I said, you know what? When I was with her, I wanted to make sure the girls, because she had two girls from previous marriage, the girls would always call him dad and not call me dad. And, it was a problem because I know the baby of the two basically would never call me dad, and I had that fine. But definitely respected them and took care of them. But nevertheless, you don't want to put hot water on their real father. This happened also, obviously. Not allowing medical, social, academic, or other information about the child to be given to the alienated parent and keeping their names off the record. Oh, Michael, this is the classic. The idea that you don't get any copies of the medical reports from the child, that at the time you have both custody issue, full custody. Remember, the parent that's trying to alienate you will try to stop you from getting any information of medical records on social, academic, anything about the child. They don't want you to know what they're doing with the child. This was so true in my case. And I'm saying medical records, my daughter fell or had a problem and was rushed to the hospital. I had no idea what was going on. They would not give it to me. I said, but I have shared custody. This was when I had shared custody. Eventually I gave up full custody because of the continual attack and the financing of the attorney on behalf of the community, the Jewish community. So you felt like you're fighting the whole entire Jewish community? I went through that. So don't feel that you're alone. No father should feel that what they're going through is something unique to themselves. This happens constantly, but it's not talked about because it's not a popular issue in the community. Sad to say, it's not something that people like to talk about. That the father, your father has to be strong. He could take it. He has a job. He has this. He has that. No, we are human beings as well. We do love our kids, and we do hurt when we don't hear from them. And that's why I feel a lot for Michael. And there's a lot of Michaels, there's a lot of Moshes out there who have gone through this and don't understand it's not easy being alienated as a parent. Not allowing medical, social, and academic. One of the issues I had, obviously, was no information as to the academic levels and progress of my kids in school. And this was a private school. And I didn't want them to continue in that private school. Gotta be careful where you put them. Because if you put them in a school that when you both agreed to, and you realize that school is no longer to their best moral, spiritual benefit, you will not be able to pull them out of that school unless both parents agree. And in this case with me, that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, the principal of the school wrote a letter. For those of you who don't understand, and I'm not going to say the school so not to get into the religious things, which most of you who know who I am and the things that I've gone through will understand that I had to pull them, I wanted to pull them out where they were at, LEC. And the struggles and the political maneuvering on a religious level was so ugly that all I did is said, you know what? You want to leave them there? I'm going to pray that somehow something happens that she would have to, by her own volition, take them out of the school. And Baruch Hashem answered my prayer, but it was not an easy process at all. Now, changing the name of the child to remove any association with the alienated parent is something that has not been done, but it has been entertained by my ex. Has been entertained because obviously the family tree, as it were, don't have any male offsprings, and of course we know in the Jewish faith you need to be fruitful and multiply. And obviously, my ex's brother doesn't have any children, and also has basically tried to adopt. in a way almost as if adopting by force, by taking control of the child that they don't have and trying to nurture them. In a way, it's a good thing because you have other caretakers helping them, but at the same time it's manipulative and it's messing their brains in a way you cannot understand. Cultivating a dependency on themselves and undermining the authority of the alienated parent, which in this case it's you, Michael. It's the father. Everything they can do to say, "Oh, you're wrong. Oh, you're wrong. Oh, you're wrong," and this begins to debilitate to such an extent that you no longer will have contact with and communication with the child. How do you combat this? It's very difficult. You're going to have a lot of money. No question about that. No matter what any attorney says, they want their attorney fees, and it could range anywhere from $5,000 to, I've heard, even up to $150,000. There's been a lot of debate whether or not parental alienation syndrome rises to the level of mental illness, which I believe it does. And the truth is, it really depends on who you ask. It's important to realize that anyone can be taught to learn, to hate, to love, or feel one way or the another about a given person. And when you have a parent who is constantly imbuing into the psyche of the child hate for the other parent, guess what's going to happen? They're going to have that hate. They're going to have that animosity. No matter how close that child was there with you in the beginning of their life, and they have that memory in their head, they have such a hostility and hurt and anger. It's incredible. And if you believe you are a victim of parental alienation, there are a few things you can do to attempt to combat it. Very difficult. The courts, as mentioned even by this attorney, does not recognize it. They have not even faced this issue. And it's got to be dealt with on legal terms eventually to change this wave of parental alienation taking place. This is one of the items on the checklist that is most overlooked by parents. Instead of telling your child, "I miss you," tell them you can't wait to see them again. Avoid any negative language, even if it's subtle. Saying you miss your child shows regret, which is a negative emotion. By saying that you can't wait to see them, you're using the positive language. Oh, how many times I've said that to them. Don't stop trying to make contact with your child, ever. So I'm taking this course. Somehow, one way or the other, I try to keep, even if it's by text message, to let them know I'm here, and if you're angry at me, there's so many different ways you can reach me. Changes may not occur in short terms, or even sometimes long terms. So keep a journal or calendar of all the efforts you make contact with your child, or attempt to. And believe me, one thing good about text message, there's a record. Keep yourself under control. Find a way to handle your emotions and follow any orders or agreements issued by the court. And unfortunately, that has been done. But don't give the alienating parents a reason to make you a villain to your children, which that has been created already. And it's the most difficult thing to break. Keep in mind that an alienating parent does not need any ammunition because they can always make something up, even if it's not real. Like in the case of false accusations, of abuse, and what have you. If they don't make something up, it's easier to overcome. While it may be hard to keep your emotions in check, and boy, is it hard. I've always had my emotions right there at the point of spilling, but you have to hold back and find someone to talk to, such as a friend, family member, or therapist. And don't blame your child, because most of it is being done because of the parent that's lashing back through the child. It is vital to recognize that the child is the victim in this whole situation, not necessarily the perpetrator. This can be challenging because the alienating parent quite likely has been programmed your child to spy on you, to challenge you, to report back, and everything you said and did, you talked to, who was at your home, when. Oh, I could tell stories on that one. This is not your child's fault. It's important that you don't blame or become angry with them. The type of behavior only feeds into the alienating parent that is telling your child, just be yourself. You're enough. Don't overcompensate. Act normally as you can do. And remember that actions do speak louder than words. Even if you send presents, even that will come to the point where the alienating parent will tell the child, "Oh, look what Mariano," or they'll use your name, "sent you." They'll start hating the presents you sent them. Believe me, I've been through that. They'll start saying, "I'm going to throw it away." Let them know I'm throwing it away. Despising, not appreciating. So you keep your plan and you keep your emotions in check, because you're definitely going to want to cry. And yes, fathers and men do cry. We're not men of steel that have no emotions. Make memorable moments with your child while you have your child with you. This is why I took videos, times that took them to the ice skating ring, or shared time when they were in karate or in whatever sports. Those are special moments. You can't let that slip away. But even that can be used against you by saying, "You see, he's only propping up pictures." It's like almost like a lose-lose situation every time you do something. Hire a team of professionals. This is what I meant. You need to have a lot of money, because with a team of professionals, you can make your side much stronger. If you don't have money, start saving to be able to do so, because it's going to take everything you have, even your soul, to be able to keep that relationship up in the flow. Some final thoughts about parental alienation of any child in any form will more likely stay with your child throughout their lives. Your child is caught in the middle of a serious situation, and the effects can be and is long-lasting. Your child will need extensive counseling to overcome the brainwashing of I would call it, the new evil parent, brainwashing them to the point that they basically alienate you, the father. Many children become withdrawn. Their self-esteem goes down the tube, or they turn to drugs, alcohol, with a lot of emotional scars. Parental alienation causes these type of things. And to use the same therapist that was used to be able to take the alienated parents to court to deprive him of his parental right, parental need, is damaging. You gotta be careful. And there's points where once you lose custody or give up custody, you've given up on the whole thing and just let it to God. Sometimes at that point, it's even better. Hopefully they will wake up. You hope and pray that your kids will wake up and see that in fact that will happen. That there's a big change in your life, in their life. So they will eventually call you, pick up the phone, and say, "Hi, Dad, I'm here. I want to let you know I'm here, even though I am angry at you, upset at you." This checklist will help you deal with the seriousness and the drama situation when one parent maliciously tries to basically put the children against you in a parental alienation situation. It's real, it exists, and parental alienation is not just a tactic to gain the upper hand in a bitter custody battle. It is affecting your child in a way that can be considered child abuse. But obviously our courts does not recognize it, and thus the battle goes on. I pray that you, Michael, get strength, and hopefully this video will help you, give you some tools. There's a lot of information online about it. There's even an organization that is now working to try to raise money to help parents who are in this situation of parental alienation. And like I said, the majority of the parental alienated are fathers and not mothers. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero, and hopefully this video, which comes out of my experience, and I'm sharing it with you, Mike, in particular, but also to the whole entire community, because I know there's a lot of parents, fathers in particular, Jewish fathers, even non-Jewish fathers, who've gone through this and said, "What is going on?" And everything will go through your mind, including wanting to eliminate the cause of the problem, and that's not really a solution. It causes a bigger problem even then. Shalom, shalom, and may this parental alienation part 3 be of help and comfort to you. Shalom, shalom.